everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Outside Line Podcast. The Outside Line Podcast. Outside Line Podcast.
Hang on to her, buddy. There's still three. He got him. He's on the side.
It just makes sense. It's too logical for them for NASCAR, though.
Carson.
I'm glad you hear us, NASCAR. Make sure you keep listening. We'll see what happens. I'm going to take a breath here. That was a long rant.
Those cars are a lot tougher than an F1 car.
Yeah, that's what I like about IndyCar. You really need the spotter.
This is going to be fun.
Alrighty, folks. Next up on the Outside Line Podcast, we're going to bring back second week in a row, obviously, our Coming to the Line segment. I'm excited to bring this back for the second week in a row. We're hoping to do it weekly. So we've got 3 more points that we're going to quickly go over, get some opinions on. Chris is obviously going to give his opinions, and we're starting off with one. I asked Chris this before we started recording, but I wanted him to share and also kind of share why this is what he chooses. But with F123 releasing this past weekend, will you be using a controller or a wheel to play the game, and why?
Personally, I'll be using a controller because, for one thing, I'm used to a controller, and controller is just so much easier because, like you said early on, you can just plug and play. And another thing is I have a very old wheel from like probably 2002, and it doesn't have force feedback. So I'm kind of stuck there, and it's like driving on ice. And I just prefer playing games with a controller anyway.
Yeah, having that controller ability has been huge just for that pick up and play ability. Just I don't feel like I have to like get in my zone and everything and start racing. So it's that aspect has been cool. So for me, I'm obviously kind of sticking with controller, but I'll hop between both. But we got 2 controller players here. Now, moving on to our second question. I touched on it briefly in our F1 segment, but I didn't want to talk about it too much because I knew this question was going to come up later in Coming to the Line. An untimely safety car cost Nico Hülkenberg a ton of track position early on in the Canadian Grand Prix. I believe he was running 7th at the time of when he pitted, and then the safety car came out, I think, while he was on pit road. Had the safety car not have come out at that time, would Hülkenberg have had a better result than 15th yesterday?
Probably. I think he would have finished in the points. At the same time, though, it's hard to say because F1 is F1 and things can happen. And we've seen Haas maybe retire a couple of times this season, I believe. So there's always reliability there and anything could happen. But I would say he probably would have finished in the points. I wouldn't think he'd be on the podium, though. I just think there's too much talent to drive through. 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton, and then what's it?
Coming to the line, 5 seconds.
4th.
Who? George?
Yeah.
No, George wrecked out. It was.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It was Charles.
Well, he'd have to go through Charles then. But yeah, just too much talent.
No, 100%.
No disrespect to Nico, though. Yeah,
and they had a great run yesterday. It was unfortunate that the safety car kind of came out when it did. It totally screwed him over, and it kind of sucks because he was running, I believe, 6th or 7th, but ultimately, 15th place isn't what they wanted. And, I think both Haas cars could have had better finishes than what they had yesterday because Magnussen finished 17th, and I feel like they talked about him a lot during the broadcast yesterday. So to come home with 17th, just not the best look. Obviously, Haas needing to get some better finishes, and they had a chance yesterday, but untimely caution or safety car for Nico Hülkenberg kind of ruined that. So moving on to our third and final point for Coming to the Line. This will feed us right into our NASCAR segment. It was announced this past week that Trackhouse Racing owner Justin Marks will be returning to the Xfinity Series, driving the number 10 for Colleague Racing at none other than the Chicago Street Course race in 2 weeks. What are your expectations for the Trackhouse owner?
Well, honestly, Chicago's a street track. Anything can happen at street tracks. So I don't know. we could have somebody from Rick Ware Racing win for all I know. We've never raced a street race before. So I wouldn't be surprised if anything happened. Oh.
My phone went off for my habit stuff, but no, it's going to be an interesting race for him, especially first time he's been in an Xfinity car in quite some time. So he's going to have his work cut out for him, especially because he's going on the Chicago Street Course race. But hey, you never know. I've talked about it before with certain guys at certain tracks, right? Just survive. If you just survive, it's a good day. He'll finish top 15 if he just survives. If the race goes how we all think it's going to go on the street race, especially in the Xfinity series. Especially in the Xfinity series. It's probably not going to be pretty. So if he just keeps the car clean, stays out of it, as I said before when talking about the Indy road course, just stop at the start-finish line, chillax for 20 seconds, let them get a head start, and then go ahead. At that point, right, everything will happen and you'll be good. And then by the end of the race, you've gained 20 spots anyways. Solid run. Sounds like a win to me. But ultimately, he could have a good week, but we'll have to see. So moving on over to the NASCAR segment. Obviously, we have Nashville coming up. But looking back to this past week, there was an ARCA race this past week, right, Chris?
One of the best there was. Upcoming female drivers at the ARCA race had a very good finish. Tori Bredinger. Y'all know who I'm talking about. I can't say names. I blame being dyslexic.
Hey, you came very close. You were very close to getting it right.
I know who she is. I'm disrespecting her, and I apologize for disrespecting her so bad. But she is one of the top female talents coming up. And she's one I think will have a lot of success in, at the very least, the Xfinity series.
Oh, absolutely. I think that she could be really good in the Xfinity series if she's given the opportunity. And there's been a lot of talk. Obviously, she's been compared to a lot by Hailie Deegan, but I'd be interested to see if she kind of has a similar path as Hailie Deegan. We've seen Hailie Deegan, right, go into the Truck Series and not be as successful, but there's a lot of people, including myself, that believe she would be better if she was in the Xfinity series. I think it could, that may be a thought when it comes to like her management team and stuff like that. And where does she go from here? Maybe that's something they think about, because the Truck Series hasn't shined a fantastic light on Hailie Deegan. It hasn't made her look any better. So I think that has been a big point where if she ends up, if ultimately Xfinity Series racing and the cars of that series work out better for her driving style, having her run in ARCA for a while and then having her move up to the Xfinity series and kind of skip trucks would not be a bad idea, because I think you have to look at how things have gone for Hailie Deegan and how everyone thinks she'd be very successful in an Xfinity car. And I'm sure she's learned a ton in the Truck Series, but those cars are not her best. They're not her strong suit. And I'd like to see her in an Xfinity car. And ultimately, I'd like to see Tori Bredinger in an Xfinity car at some point as well, because I think we would see success out of both of them. And so I think that it would start, a new wave of gender diversity in the sport. And I think that would be a really cool thing for our sport to have the two of them be successful. So really, it comes down to get them in the Xfinity series and damn it, get them racing side by side with each other, because not only would it be entertaining, but the two of them would be racing side by side for second, third, fourth place with the right opportunity and the right cars.
Heck, I think Tori, she might be able to have some success in Cup. Because I've looked at her stats. I've watched some highlights here and there. I'm impressed. She has more talent than a lot of the male drivers that get way more attention than they should.
Oh yeah.
And two, it's annoying to see how Hailie Deegan she gets badmouthed a lot. And like we were saying, I don't think she quite deserves it because not everybody is suited to drive trucks. Because they're two different things. And in one way, it's kind of like saying, just because a person wasn't competitive in ARCA will mean that they're not going to be competitive in Cup. They're two different cars.
Right.
I mean, ARCA is a stepping stone to Cup, albeit indirect one, but there are probably drivers that I don't know that have had a lot of success in Cup that did god awful in ARCA. I think both of them have a lot of talent. And I think Tori has. I think she's probably, you could make an argument that she's the best female driver right now and has the highest prospect of any female driver.
Absolutely. So it would be really exciting to see her get the right opportunity. Obviously, a great weekend for her in the ARCA series. I don't know when ARCA races next, but make sure you guys are checking out that series because is she racing in the same series that Frankie Muniz races in?
I think so.
Yeah, there's a lot of entertainment factor in the ARCA series right now. When I say that, I don't mean the racing, mind you. Okay, that's not what I mean because the racing is god awful right now. I think there were. I think that, mind you, I don't know if you knew this. Tori finished a lap down, but finished 5th. But she was a lap down, and that's not by her own fault. It's because you got 3 Joe Gibbs cars and everybody else. It's one of the big problems with ARCA right now. There's a complete imbalance with the cars. So like Joe Gibbs with the money, I believe. Like they used to have Daniel Dye in the car, I believe, and guys like that. It's like they are the ones that end up winning, and it just. I'll say this: I've seen ARCA races because they're every weekend at the championship race. They crown an ARCA champion usually, and so usually there's an ARCA race. And one of the things that I've noticed is, usually then there's cars that are way off, but there was more cars that were competitive. I don't know what's happened this year, but to have only 4 cars finish on the lead lap, that's not a good look for the ARCA series.
Where were they racing?
I don't know. Where did the ARCA race? Berlin?
For a second, I thought you meant Germany. I was like, wait, what?
I do it every time. Every time I hear they're racing at Berlin, I do the exact same thing. But no, it looks like they raced at Berlin in Marne, Michigan.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know much about that place. I probably know more about Berlin, Germany than I know about Berlin, Michigan. I've never been to Berlin.
I have never been to either, but hey, either way, solid. I don't want to say solid, but there was an ARCA race that happened this weekend. Tori Brenninger finished in the top 5, so big point there.
I could be mistaken, but I think she might be racing in the trucks this upcoming weekend.
She is? Isn't she? She's in the Victoria's Secret car? Is that the one I was screaming and yelling about because I could get my girlfriend to watch? Yeah, the Victoria's Secret #1 car. I'm pretty sure she'll be in this. It feels like an NR 2003 car. I swear to God, it feels like some stuff I pulled off a Snoonod. Honestly.
It does. It looks like it too.
It does. It looks like a Snoonod paint scheme. I can't believe it. It's going to be the most interesting, collaboration, NASCAR and Victoria's Secrets. But hey, why not? Victoria's Secret's popular. The more popular brands in the sport, I am all for it. Go for it. That's fine.
I think she's a model too for Victoria's Secret, so that's a big thing about the sponsorship.
And with sponsorship these days, you need sponsorship. So that could be huge. That could be a big plus. If she has sponsorship, that's going to help her out tremendously. Not to knock on Danica Patrick, but that's what kept her in the Cup Series for so long, was having GoDaddy behind her. So you saw as soon as GoDaddy left, it was I think she had maybe 1 year without GoDaddy before she didn't have a ride anymore. Like GoDaddy funded her career. So do we see a similar thing, right? I mean, Monster does the same thing with Hailie Deegan. They're kind of funding her career. They funded Ty Gibbs' career, right? So do we see a similar thing with Victoria's Secret? Definitely could be something to keep an eye on if they stick around on a Tori Brettinger car for a long time. They may be a big reason why she has success in the future if she does. So something to look at.
There
Now,
are a lot of drivers to keep an eye on that maybe 10 years ago wouldn't have a shot,
mhm.
of like Tori and Haley Deegan.
Now, one guy to keep an eye on, his name, he just got announced this week for the number 4 car. His name's Josh Berry. What are your expectations, right, for Josh Berry going to the 4 car for Stuart Haas? Obviously, no official announcement yet. So it has not officially been announced, but we've seen multiple reports. It was reported during the week of the Coke 600 that this was going to happen. But Josh Berry to the 4, Chris, how do you feel?
I mean, I think it's a good opportunity for Barry. I really do. And going to an established team, and he's got big shoes to fill, though, because Harvick is a legend. But I think he's raced Cup this year, hasn't he?
Oh yeah, he's been the rotation driver for Hendrick.
That's right. That's right. And when Chase has been hurt,
Chase, Alex, any
why
of
does
them.
everybody get hurt? But anyways,
Hurt,
yeah,
suspended.
and he's been very impressive too. So I think they got something there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to keep in mind, right, tailor those expectations a little bit. Kevin Harvick has outdriven this race car for a long
That's
time.
true.
So keep in mind for all fans, just, Josh Berry's not going to go out there and just start winning races like it's like his hair's on fire, like he's Kyle Busch at RCR, right? That's not how this is going to work. There are going to be some growing pains and it's going to take some time, but I think he'll get there. I think it'll be similar to sort of a Chase Briscoe where maybe we don't see him win in that first year, but then in year 2, maybe we see him win. I just think I love Chase Briscoe. Chase Briscoe, I'm a big fan of him, but he makes a lot of boneheaded mistakes. And I feel like we'll see a lot less of that with Josh Berry. And Josh Berry has more of that veteran aspect to him that I think SHR really, really needs for their future because they're getting a lot younger over there. And with Kevin Harvick being gone, they need a guy who's going to be able to pick up those pieces. And so for it to be Josh Berry, that's a big deal. And I think that he's a good role. I think he's going to be a good fit with Rodney Childers. I just don't think he's going to explode right out of the gates. I think maybe we could see him have some solid runs, towards the end of the summer stretch next year and towards the fall. But to say off the bat, he's going to be in the playoffs by, week 10, like that's just not going to happen, right? Unless SHR makes a huge leap in their equipment, that's just not going to happen.
And yeah, that's true. And Tony Stewart, I would say he's pretty patient with his drivers too. Wouldn't you think?
Oh yeah, he absolutely. I think he's done a very good job of being patient about the guys that he has on the team. Obviously, there's that one incident with Daniel Suarez and only being there a year, but sponsorship I feel like had a lot to do with that when they look back on that. There's a lot of different things with it, and I feel like they gave Cole Custer as many opportunities as they kind of could, and I don't think Cole's been all that crazy impressive in the Xfinity series as compared to what he was before he went to the Cup series, right? So, they do a really good job of making sure that their drivers have time to develop. I mean, Eric Almirola is still in the seat and he's got like maybe 3 wins in that car. And there are probably 15 other drivers who could drive that car, that 10 car, and run better in it. They are extremely patient with their guys. But I also think at the same time, sponsorship dollars fund a lot of these cars. And I think one of the biggest questions that I think why Josh Berry is going to be able to get this 4 car is because Anheuser-Busch is going to stay at Stuart Haas Racing with the 4 team. I think that that's a very big thing because if they were to leave, that changes how this 4 car is perceived entirely. That takes out a big chunk of guys that could have gotten the role because maybe they don't have the sponsorship. And so the fact that they're staying, I think they're happy with having sort of that veteran role of Josh Berry come in and take over. And who knows? I've seen some guys talking. Obviously, it's Redditors, so anything could happen. And these guys don't know anything. And like for certain, they don't know anything. But some
Reddit's
guys
wild.
exactly. But some guys had mentioned, right, that there's been a bigger push for sort of Budweiser, that sort of thing. Like, could they change the beer that is on the car? Right, it had been Budweiser for a long time, and then they had pushed it over to Busch Light after I think Harvick had Budweiser for a few years, and then he went over to Busch Light. So I think, could they end up switching the beer that's on the car? Would it no longer be Busch? Maybe. But at the same time, Busch is one of those 4 title sponsors of the series, so it's hard to see that happening as well.
I want to see a Budweiser car back. I miss the Budweiser red.
I would love a Budweiser red car. I've always said I've been shocked that I don't think we've had any Bud Light cars. And
that's true.
The right, like a Bud Light car could look good with that blue and everything. It could look good if there was a Bud Light car, but we've never seen one.
Wait,
is that
what was Rusty Wallace's car back in the day?
He was Miller Lite.
That's right, Miller Lite.
Yeah, because I think if I Google it right now, there is no. The only ones that'll come up are like from Stunod. Yeah. There's a Kevin Harvick number 4 Bud Light car from like Stunod. That it's a nice looking car. It's like a normal blue. And, I've just always been surprised that it never existed. Like imagine Dale's red car, but for like 1 or 2 races, it was blue and had Bud Light. It was Bud Light. Same design, just blue. Bright blue.
Yeah, I could dig it.
I think I saw a cursed. It was like a cursed image. That's why I thought of it. It was like a cursed image, and it was that car of him in the 8 car, but it was the exact same colors. It was just blue.
That don't sound cursed to me. That sounds. I wouldn't call it blessed.
I think
it wasn't
cool.
cursed.
It would probably look a little bit similar to the he drove a red, white, and blue Budweiser scheme one time that had the entirely blue nose on it. So it would probably be somewhat similar to that, obviously with more blue, but I would have loved to seen that car hit the track. I'm sad it's a fantasy that I had. Oh yeah, here. I have a photo of it. I'll have to send it to you of the 8 car the Bud Light. It looks pretty good in the all blue, and it's got a silver number on it.
Maybe Jacob can put this into editing.
Hey, he might be able to throw it up on the screen so everybody knows what I'm talking about. I'll send him the image that I'm looking at. But yeah, ultimately, Josh Berry going to take over the 4 car. Huh?
Send it over chat too. If he can't add it in, then
yeah,
we could just cut this part out. But because I want everybody to see my reaction to it.
Let's see. Let me see if my Slack chat pulls up here. But ultimately, guys, Josh Berry to the 4 car. I am excited to see if we get that other. Do we get another Bud car? Do we get what beer hops on this Anheuser-Busch car if they decide to stay on the 4 car? It's going to be a big deal. And Chris is you're about to get his reaction to, dang, check my email for a code. You're killing me right now. All right, we'll have to do it later because Slack is being stupid. But ultimately, it's a cool looking car. I'm not I think you'd be a fan if you if you were able to see it, you'd be a fan.
How long has it been since we've had a Bud car?
2013. No, 2014.
It's almost been 10 years.
Yeah, because
we need a Bud car back.
Harvick won his championship in a Bud car. I forget about that.
NASCAR doesn't feel right without a Budweiser car. I've always kind of thought that was missing. Then same with Miller Lite and the 2.
Absolutely. I think not having the 2 is just I don't want to say it's unrecognizable, but it's nowhere near as recognizable with Discount Tire on it than it is with Miller on it. Those old blue cars were very recognizable back in the day. It was to me as a kid, right, there were certain cars that you just recognized. That was one of them, right? You know, like I think for me, I remember, yeah, I think I used to remember the M&M's car, which was the 38 back in the day. I remember Jeff Gordon's car a lot. I also remembered, and this is because of NASCAR '07, entirely because of NASCAR '07, but like Jeff Green's number 66 Best Buy car before Matt Kenseth got it. That car
remember that one, honestly.
was one of my absolute favorites.
The cars that I always think of are Rusty Wallace's Miller Lite, Dale's GM, then Terry Labonte's Cornflakes.
Yeah.
And the four, Mike Skinner, Ernie Irvin, and
Kodak?
their Kodak.
Yeah. I love that car. One of my favorite looking cars. Anyways, folks, moving on. We're looking ahead to Nashville. That's what's going to be up on the NASCAR schedule this upcoming week. The Ally 400 coming up Sunday, June 25th, 2023 at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Keep in mind, folks, we have moved over. We are no longer on Fox. It's on NBC. All the races are on NBC. So make sure that you guys are on NBC. Make sure you guys don't tune into Fox because you're not going to find the race. But yeah, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. First like real night race we've had. I think the dirt race was at night, but first night race on an asphalt track that we've had this year. So Chris, do you have what's your prediction for this upcoming weekend at Nashville? Do you have who are you predicting to win?
Let me think for a second. Honestly, Nashville, I keep saying honestly. I don't know where that came from. You could play a drinking game. But I've never seen the Nashville race. That's another race that I somehow keep missing, like Homestead. I don't know why, but let me think.
Well,
I'm just going
you're
to go
thinking.
off a hunch.
Go off a hunch. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, so for me, I like Joey Logano a lot this weekend. I don't know why. It's just that's the feeling I'm getting. Obviously, I'm coming off of my Martin Truex Jr. getting the dub for me, so I'd love to pick him again, but let's be realistic. It's going to be Joey Logano, so hopefully Logano has my back. And then dark horse for this weekend is going to be dark horse for this weekend. Give me Eric Almirola, man. That's what I'm thinking. Give me Eric Almirola. I swear if he pulls this off, dude, I owe you big time if you pull this off, Eric. I'm begging you. Get the win this weekend. I know you want to. Okay, I know you want to win.
Give you $1.
Yeah, I'll give you this hat. If you want this hat from the Dale Jr. Forever Tour, I'll give you my hat. If you want my hat, I can give you my Juggernog soda on my desk if you like COD Zombies. But that's really all I have, unless you want my G Fuel collection up here. That's really all I got for you. So, but please win. It'd make my heart very happy.
I could go for the easy one and say Kyle Larson.
Oh, come on. You know you want to take the layup. Freaking Jacob's not here to pick it.
I'm actually thinking Martin Truex.
Oh, yeah? Are you going to try out the luck with Martin Truex Jr.?
I think I will, and I have a good feeling about him.
He's been good, really, man. He's been good. I don't blame you for picking him. I was 50-50 on it. I'm only not picking him because I don't want to screw up my him winning streak.
You can blame me then. And my dark horse. How's Bubba been doing lately?
Still solid. They've had a solid year, and to his credit, excuse me, I'm a little tired here. We normally don't record this late in the evening. But Bubba's had some really good races over the last few weeks, and I think he's been very consistent. You could see something out of him, but where did he finish? He finished 17th at Sonoma, so he's not the biggest road course guy, right? But he's been really solid as long as this past week doesn't affect his momentum, that 17th place finish, and they can carry what they had prior. He's going to be just fine because unlike last year, a lot more consistent at the early part of the year. They're not 23rd, 24th in points, having to claw multiple positions up to try and get into the playoffs. They've been in the hunt since week 2, and that's important for them. That's improvement for that team.
Yeah, okay. I might go with. I'm torn between Suarez and Bubba.
Bubba's been better as of late.
I'm thinking Bubba, and I'm thinking he'll at least finish top 5, top 10.
Absolutely. Suarez's momentum is just so flat-footed right now. He finished 22nd at Sonoma, a race that he won the year prior. And it just was not the race that I think he or anybody at Trackhouse Racing was expecting, for that matter. Because Trackhouse hasn't,
luck.
Right. And Trackhouse hasn't been, I don't mean to be rude, but they haven't been relevant for the last 3-4 weeks. Like, Chastain has fallen off the face of the earth for the last 3-4 weeks. Nobody's talked about him.
He needs to start a fight again.
Exactly, dude. He's stop telling him to rein his crap back. He's better when he's going all out. Clearly,
You're gonna start throwing watermelons out.
Exactly.
Go full GTA.
Exactly.
Instead of grenades, just throw watermelons.
Speaking of GTA, an arcade game, we made our picks. I want to mention it was announced today that NASCAR will officially have a 2023 console game. Can you believe it? Coming out later this year.
But
NASCAR Arcade Rush.
Quite gonna be what you're thinking.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be one of your what should be yearly sims, but it's going to be an arcade game, which can be just as fun.
Yeah, NASCAR Arcade Rush. There was a lot of interesting. Can I stop yawning? Oh my God. Okay. NASCAR Arcade Rush. There was a lot of interesting. Yeah. There was a lot of interesting points about this game that I wanted to bring up, right? It's going to be releasing later this year for multiple consoles, PC, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, all those consoles, dropping at $49.99, so maybe a little bit high priced. But the developers of this game, they also developed a few other games that have been popular over recent years. They developed all of the Nicktoons kart racers, so all the Nickelodeon's kart games. They also developed the Nickelodeon like Super Smash Bros. Spinoff. They were helpful in developing that game. So they've developed some games that have seen some success over the last few months. I think they used to do some Monster Jam as well. So a lot of success with this company. Could be a very entertaining arcade game. It's supposed to be obviously very arcade-like. They don't have the licensing for drivers and for cars. So that aspect kind of blows. The one thing that really is good, though, that I'm excited for is they said in the detail notes that there was going to be the option to play through basically the eras, starting from like the Pinties all the way up until like the next gen car. So it looks like there might be an opportunity to race with every single era of car. Be the first game to allow that. I don't know why that's not in in a sanctions NASCAR game to this point without mods, mind you. Obviously, you can do it in NR 2003, but without mods, right, that would be a super cool feature to have where you can drive through the eras, the 70s, 80s, 90s. Super cool feature to have. So this game will have that. It's also going to have redesigned, obviously, tracks like Talladega, Daytona, Martinsville were mentioned. They're going to have some very big redesigns. There'll be custom cars. There'll be a career mode. So there's going to be a lot to this game. It's just a matter of, is it fun or not? It's an arcade game, so it better be.
I mean, it can't be as much of a disaster as NASCAR Ignition.
Oh, I'm sure it won't be. The hard
Absolutely
part is
nothing can be that big of a disaster.
No. The hard part for me is it's $50. And like for arcade games, like I'm more inclined to maybe spend $20, like for those like sort of low priced, indie games. I like those $20 games. But $50 for an arcade game, this thing better be the greatest arcade game of all time for $50, because otherwise I ain't getting it.
Right. And
like I'm not paying $50 for NASCAR Unleashed 2. Okay? Like it's got to be something different. You got to give me a real reason to get this game.
I can imagine. I'm just sitting here thinking, did you ever play the old NASCAR Daytona arcade game?
I didn't. The most that I got to play was the ones that they had like at the actual arcade where you sat down with the wheel. I used to play those a lot. But the most arcadey NASCAR I played, I was a NASCAR kart racer back in the day, back on the Wii, NASCAR kart racing. Oh yeah, throwback. I'm sure that brought something sparked in people's heads there when I said NASCAR kart racing. But one of my favorite games.
But going back to why they haven't made every era available, or at least old eras available in games, that's a good point, especially since it's 75th anniversary. That's just gold.
Oh yeah. If NASCAR had competent people working on their video games, they would have an amazing year if they were able to come up with something like that. NBA 2K recently released a My Eras mode, which allows you to go back to I want to say you started in 1982. So you started in 1982 and you start there, and they have draft classes for every single year. So you don't have to do anything. It's all set up for you. All of the teams have their old logos with their old floors where they used to play. And then it'll change as time goes on. And you start in 1984 and you can do your franchise all the way up until 2040. Like you can do it almost 70 years in that game, right? That sort of thing. Go ahead.
Does that mean you can be the Dallas Mavericks and draft Michael Jordan?
Correct. Michael Jordan is draftable. He can go anywhere, right? Like I did one with the Seattle Supersonics. We ended up with Shaq, and Duncan Robinson led the Washington Bullets to 7 straight titles in the 90s. So like when they were like, oh, the Washington Bullets are going to rename to the Washington Wizards, I was like, honestly, I'm not allowed, or they were in Baltimore, not Washington. They were originally the Baltimore Bullets. And so when they were going to relocate, I was like, they won 7 championships. I cannot allow this team to relocate. So, but if they added something like that into NASCAR, where like you start your career off, like say you want to do a career and you want to start off in 92, like Jeff Gordon, go for it. Like you can race alongside Jeff Gordon as a rookie. Say you want to be like Dale Earnhardt and be a veteran when Jeff Gordon is coming into the series, start in 1982. You've been in the race series for 10 years. Like that sort of aspect would be freaking awesome if they added something in like that.
That would even be good DLC.
100%. Add in like the 1985 DLC, the 1975 DLC, the 1995 DLC, the 2005 DLC, the 2015 DLC,
I mean, or the 2000 DLC where it's kind of the bridge between modern and the modern era and the last era, like in the 90s. I guess the modern era isn't a thing anymore. So-called modern era isn't a thing anymore. But now back to what we were talking about. We have a lighting change and everything. That's how long we've been recording. It got dark.
I hate when that happens. I did that once on a live show and it just started getting dark, and eventually I had to get up and like turn my light on because I was like, I can't. It's too dark in here. But
anyways, we were talking about the eras, how that would be a really good mode for 75th anniversary. F1 did something like that about 20 years ago. Which it's considered still to this day one of the better F1 games out there. It's back when EA Sports was doing F1 the first time. And it was the F1 Championship Challenge 99 to 02. And you could do a career mode, start off at 1999, then go up to 2002, which that was a very unique thing. Or you could do race now mode and race any of the years and any of the teams and any of the drivers.
I think that would be absolutely amazing. But part of the problem is with sponsorship these days, right? Like, how does all that work? Like, that might be why they can't do it, because how does all that work? Like, at least like with NBA, all they had to do was pay the players that are involved a little extra money, and that's it. But like with this, they would have to not only pay those drivers, but then there's sponsors that they want to have on the car. Otherwise, right? And I'm not totally against this either, but you may have to have cars that have, sort of fake sponsors, but look like the real cars. They look like paint schemes out of Cars 1. that are mimicking real life paint schemes. But like that could be something that you could see, and that's a good compromise. I don't think people would hate it if, you know, you have an interstate batteries car, but it has to be called freeway batteries and not interstate batteries. Like I think people would prefer to have the mode be in there than not be in there at all. And, you know, they'll take the give me a random sponsor with the exact same paint scheme over, you know, not having the mode at all.
Or just encourage modding with it too. And let people mod the sponsors in. Like, of course, you're going to have sponsors like Circuit City that don't exist anymore. Who drove the Circuit City car?
I don't know. Because it feels like an Elliott Sadler type deal.
I think it was Elliott Sadler, but I'm not sure. But yeah, and of course you're going to have that. So it would be tough to do, but I think it's doable, and I think that would go really, really, really well. It would be expensive, but I think the ratings on it would be fantastic, and I think it'd sell well, and it's perfect for DLC.
Well, and to your point, if you give people the ability to add that stuff into the game, it's kind of like NCAA games. They're, you know, obviously they're trying to get players in the game now for next year's game, but the old NCAA games didn't include players, but they gave you the option to then create rosters. So what was the first thing you did when you downloaded NCAA, you know, 13 on your console and you were ready to play? You went and downloaded the new rosters that somebody took the time to create, because they gave you the option to say, hey, I want to create the rosters for this. And they always knew that somebody was going to create the rosters. So even if they couldn't, somebody was going to create them for them, and it was going to be just fine. So if they were willing to allow that, right, give everybody the backbone of it, right? Give them the baseline, give them the game and everything, and then allow that tool to be able to create cars and allow them to be able to change the entire field and who's driving what car. Once you add in that ability, similar to like an NR 2003, it'll take off. I mean, we've seen how NR 2003 is still a thing today. Part of that is because of that, those tools were allowed. Nobody plays NR 2002. There's no mods for it. Everybody plays NR 2003 because you could still mod it 20 years later.
And the physics are really fun too.
Exactly.
That was always a thing. But and the damage model's still the best of any racing game out there. Mm-hmm. And two, all you really have to do with that is have a paint booth and then have the ability to upload it online. That's literally it.
I think NASCAR 09 used to do that, right?
Like, it's been so long since I played NASCAR 09.
I think when they released it up on the it wasn't on the old consoles, because I was a PS2 NASCAR 09 player. I never played it on the Xbox 360. It was always like a treat if I got the Xbox 360 version, because the NASCAR 09 on PS2 was just like NASCAR 08. NASCAR 08 was fairly similar to NASCAR 07. So like very similar games, but definitely could have been a possibility.
And all you need is a paint booth and text editor, and then you have the NASCAR, I think it was 15 did it. 15, for all its bugs, that's one thing it did right.
Yeah, the paint booth in that game was one of the best, because you could add in literally anything you wanted. You could make it as customized. It was as customizable as you wanted it to be.
Sometimes it was a little bit too customizable.
Yeah.
Because you could easily mess stuff up.
Yeah, there was definitely that, and it was definitely hard to it was hard for me personally to get the cars to look good, because I feel like I put everything on there and I'm like, oh, that looks awful. It looks like a third grader made it. Granted, I was in third grade, but I don't need people to know that based off of the design of the car. Especially in that sort of game, because most people in NASCAR games are 25, 30, or they're our age, right? So I don't need them to know I'm 13, man. I used to do league races with people 7 to 10 years older than me.
Did you beat them though?
Nah, I was usually a mid to. My thing was I'm better about it now, but I really I don't ever want to mess anybody up because people get really mad in league races and stuff like that, and even just in online racing in general. So I was always too scared to kind of mess anybody up to really force any issues or I was definitely never pushing 100% in those races because I didn't want to screw anybody up. If I did a league race nowadays, I don't care. I'm going to race my ass off. But back then that was a different story. Just I was 13, and like when you're 13, right? If people think you're cool, that's a big deal. And so at that point, like I was smart enough to know I'm on a short leash here. I am the youngest to the bunch. I'm on a short leash, so I better not do anything, say anything stupid because it's gone with you real quickly. And because I'm so young, they're not going to care. So you had to be careful. And I think it tailored to how I drove in the game at a young age because I didn't want everybody to hate me.
Yeah. Those middle school and high school days when you did everything you could just to act cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of cool, I got some stuff to show you and everybody else.
Absolutely. To round things out, Chris has some show and tell for us.
Yeah. I recently ordered this, and I recently ordered some die-cast cars to channel my inner Jacob. And check this out. The Alfa Romeo 163 scale.
Ooh.
And let me take it out for y'all.
I've never seen a mini F1 car before. That's amazing. Now I feel like I need to add some to my collection.
And I'm about to show you a Ferrari one. I already opened the box. Like, here's the Ferrari 75th anniversary car that they did from last year. And
that looks good.
It really does. And still same scale and rubber tires. They aren't just some plastic things. And they actually spin. And the detail on it's great. And so Alfa Romeo and Ferrari, and then I have Daniel Ricciardo's McLaren from last year.
Ooh, I love that. I love the colors of that car in real life. So to have it as a 164,
it's real cheap where I got it too. It's only like $15. And then the best one, the biggest one.
I got to see this one before the show. This is a beautiful looking car.
And here we go. I'm holding it backwards. It's Max Verstappen's car where he won the championship with last year at Abu Dhabi. And let me take it out of the case here. See, it has spinnable tires, they're rubber, and then look at the detail on the halo. Can you see that?
Yeah.
And then they have actually Max inside the car here.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's something. And I got this for like $15, which is wild. I looked this up online, and these things are like between $50 and $100.
Where'd you get it?
Okay, so do you know this website Temu?
Yeah.
Yeah. They got
you
a
got
lot
it from Temu?
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out. I always see the $7 Switches. They have like $7 Nintendo Switches that I've heard it's like 75-25, whether or not you get a good one. But hey, I would try it out, especially because like it's one of those things where it's like, hey, this is cheap enough. Let's get it. And that thing's gorgeous. So for $15, that's an absolute steal.
It really is. And then on eBay, they have similar cars that are like $50, I think. And that guy actually has a very good selection of cars. So I won't go too deep into it because I don't want this to turn into a review. But I thought that would be cool to show y'all because it's such a good deal for that level of detail. And F1 car diecasts are rare in general, and when you do see them, they're stupid expensive. So you should look them up when you get a chance. Look them up on eBay. Look some up on Temu or AliExpress or one of those wholesale places. You'll get yourself a deal there.
Oh, I might have to check it out. And I mean, for our viewers, I would try and find one too, because I know from personal experience, I have seen very little F1 diecast, whether it's a 163, a 124. Very little have I seen of those diecasts. So it's cool that you were able to get some, especially at a cheap deal. So that is awesome.
And I didn't show you the box of the Ferrari too. It's the 75th anniversary, and it has a special box on it.
That's nice.
And with Carlos here on the end, or that's Charles there on the end, and Carlos on the other end.
That's a nice looking diecast. I'm yawning again. God. All right. Well, good news is we're at the end of the show. We have finally hit the end of the show, guys. We talked about a lot today. Obviously talked about F1, the Canadian Grand Prix, and then the Austrian Grand Prix coming up in F1 23. Mentioned IndyCar and Road America with them having Mid-Ohio on July 2nd. And then obviously with Nashville coming up this upcoming weekend for NASCAR. A lot of good racing to keep an eye out for. Remember, Sunday night, it's a night race at 7 Eastern time on NBC. Chris, do you have anything you want to plug yourself before we head out here?
Yeah, I got a Twitter that CJ Outside Line, and I should probably use it more than I do. But I occasionally retweet some stuff, and it's basically stuff that I think is cool, honestly. Dare I say honestly again? But anyways, I also follow me on Back Sports page, Christopher Shoemaker. I recently had an article out. Who should be on NHL 2024? So check out who my guesses could be. And yeah, what about you?
Well, guys, you guys can find me at Mace Hollywood on Twitter. And then if you guys check me out on Instagram, it's going to be mason.wood01. On Twitter, if you go on my page, there is a link tree. It's going to take you to all of my articles on Back Sports page. Make sure you guys are checking things out there. Me and the football crew recently mentioned the Madden 24 cover, which was recently revealed over the last couple of weeks. So we had a very large discussion about whether or not Josh Allen was worthy of the cover. Spoiler alert, I said he was not. I picked the Kelsey brothers as the cover. So go check out that article if you want to know more about some football. But if you're looking to look for some more motorsports stuff, check out Jacob Barker as well. He's had a lot of good motorsports stuff. He posts every single week updating you on what's going on in the NASCAR world. So we did not have Jacob here this weekend. We dearly missed him, but he'll be back with us next weekend. Jacob's Twitter, JW Barker24.
That's right. I should know Jacob's Twitter.
Yeah.
We talk every day.
Yeah, Jacob's Twitter, if you guys want to follow him, JW Barker24. I believe his Instagram is that as well. So make sure you guys are following our main host. We were without him this week, but he'll be back on episode 16 of the Outside Line podcast, where we might be joined by our first guest in the series. Still thinking, but possibility for sure. With that, guys,
stay tuned for that.
Exactly.
You might make make a new friend. What? Y'all know what I mean. You'll get to meet a new person.
Yeah. So it'll be very exciting. But folks, we thank you for joining us today for the Outside Line podcast, episode 15. We hope you enjoyed, and we hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah. Have fun. Make new friends.
Adios.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching this most recent edition of the Outside Line podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure to check us out on Spotify at The Outside Line. And if you liked Christopher, Jacob, and I's opinions, make sure to check us out on Back Sports page for more articles and opinions about F1, NASCAR, and IndyCar. Thank you again for watching The Outside Line.